Together We Talk podcast. Today we are with Nathan Bibby, who's Rossendale Schools game organizer, and we're going to be talking all about that was made a bit of a hash of that, didn't I? About sport in our local primary schools and secondary schools. So welcome, Nathan, and go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Ken. Yeah, so we'll get it right. School games organizer, but it's a bit of a tongue twister. So I'm Nathan. I've been based in Rossendale in the School Sports Partnership for, I think this is my 8th year now, based over at the Valor Leadership Academy, which most of you will know as Fians, but it's the Valor Leadership Academy now. I've, like I said, I've been in this role for 8 years. Absolutely love it. Absolutely love Rossendale. Never been to Rossendale before I started this role. I definitely absolutely love it now. I think the community here is fantastic. Love my job. Sport fanatic. Come from sports and exercise science background. I was based in Loughborough for 4 years. I studied and I worked in sports development for a year as well. And then that's where I kind of joined Rossendale and been here ever since. And I hope to stay here for a long time coming as well.
Cool. And you're a runner, aren't you? Is that your athletics is your sport? Is that right?
Yeah, athletics is my sport, or was my sport back in the day. So I was a middle distance runner, good cross country runner as well. Got to kind of international level as a junior, which is why I went to Loughborough to train, and I thought I was going to make it and be a professional athlete, but that unfortunately didn't happen due to many injuries and exams kind of taking over and whatnot. But athletics is my passion, but all sports, I love all sports, and just being physically active as well, especially now. I go on lots of runs, lots of walks, but I'm not competitive anymore myself. It's more just about being physically active and getting outside and enjoying the beautiful areas that we live in Lancashire, really.
Yeah, cool. Well, tell us, just for a bit of context then, briefly, what is your role and what does school sport look like in Rossendale? Maybe if we talk pre-COVID first, so what was the kind of programme of activity that we used to have in Rossendale?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I said, I'm based over at the Valor Leadership Academy, but I basically represent all schools in Rossendale. So my role as school games organizer is a national role. There's 460 of us up and down the country in every single borough, commissioned by the Youth Sport Trust, and we kind of working 3 days a week as school games organisers, and then 2 days a week the primary schools in Rossendale pay into what's called the School Sports Partnership, and that's basically how I kind of work 5 days a week. But the setup in Rossendale is that the school games kind of stuff is a free initiative, and the idea behind that is that every single child has the opportunity to represent their school in some kind of sporting competition. Now, outside of that, and that's kind of traditionally was kind of a pathway from intra-competition, so competitions within your school against your classmates. Then the idea from that, you'd go to a borough-wide, so a Rossendale competition that I would run, where you kind of select pupils to represent them in that. If you won that, you then go to the Lancashire School Games, and then there's the National School Games as well. That's kind of pre-COVID, and it's kind of changed from there, and we can talk about that in a little bit in terms of what school games almost looks like coming out of COVID. And then in terms of the School Sports Partnership, that's what, like I said, primary schools pay into that partnership, and we've got really, really good working relationships with the likes of the Rossendale Leisure Trust and other providers as well. And schools pay into that so that the coaches within the Leisure Trust and some of the local clubs as well go into schools, and they deliver breakfast clubs, lunchtime clubs, after school clubs, PE lessons as well, in virtually all of the primary schools within Rossendale. We also do teacher training, so we work with national partners such as the Youth Sport Trust and Sport England, and national governing bodies for each different sports, as well as Lancashire County Council, delivering kind of PE curriculum based teacher training. So yeah, we've got a really, really good CPD kind of program that we offer to schools. And then we've got so many different opportunities. I like to think of the School Sports Partnership as kind of like the glue, the connector kind of thing within Rosendale, in terms of connecting schools and different organisations, both nationally and locally together, to give schools that ideas around what their physical activity, PE, and school sports offer could be like. So we're kind of that, yeah, almost like the DNA of school sports and physical activity within Rosendale, really.
Yeah, I think what's the little bit that I know about it, just flying the flag, I think, for schools games across the country in terms of our level of engagement with schools and with young people. And I think we deliver something like 5,000 hours of sport within school time, over 100 competition dates throughout every academic year. So just lots and lots of really great work going on. It's big.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, we've got stats like that. I think last year, or pre-COVID, we were doing 139 different competition dates every academic year. So that's 4 or 5 competitions a day, sometimes twice a day. So competitions and festivals were kind of our bread and butter, really. And yeah, our data has been really good over the years in terms of national data. We've been in the top 5% when I have to submit the data that I give. So Rosendale schools are really, really well engaged with the school games programme and with the School Sports Partnership. And yeah, we've got a really, really good, fantastic relationship with them schools. And, we're kind of leading the way in terms of, creating, active schools as well within Rosendale. I know Chris Willam was on this podcast a few weeks ago talking about the work that he's doing, and we're really well connected with that and looking to support Chris to help create them active schools. So yeah, it's going really, really well in terms of the School Sports Partnership and school games in Rosendale.
And then, of course, this time last year, COVID then came, and I guess most of the sport kind of in schools, stopped because most of the kids were at home, right? And competition have still not really started up again. But I think you took a really, really innovative approach, really leading the way, I think, in terms of providing that provision to children, but then a more expanded offering to families as well. Just talk to us a bit about what the COVID program looked like and where that came from, and the things like the virtual mile and
yeah. So yeah, it was really difficult at first, kind of figuring out what role we had to play in terms of school sports and whether it was even that's important at the time. But then thinking about it, actually pupils are missing out on that kind of social connection, being physically active, and taking part in school sport is actually, it's massive. Some of the best memories I had when I was in school was taking part in school sports competitions and different events and being with my friends and enjoying it. And it wasn't about necessarily winning, but it was just about having fun and being out of the classroom for me. So yeah, that's kind of the thought process was initially the school games organisers in Lancashire. We kind of put a programme together, and we really were kind of leading the way nationally with how quick we got a virtual offer out there in terms of Lancashire. So we had a programme that we'd send out a weekly timetable with links to all sorts of national programmes, such as like Joe Wick's workouts were a given, but we did very much local kind of programme as well, where we used the Lancashire County Council's PE scheme of work. So we're actually sending out PE lessons on a weekly basis. And we kind of really thought it was really important to emphasise play. Just like play was like one of our main things, was about just having fun and playing and being physically active. But then on a local level, I think we probably were one of the first to kind of put some real virtual competitions out there. And the idea behind the virtual mile that you mentioned before was that was my first virtual competition that we kind of put out there. And that was to replace the cross country. So the cross country, the primary school cross country, every year we have 500-600 pupils taking part at Mile Pits, and it's my favourite event by far. I mean, I'm a runner, so that kind of makes sense, but it's one of the biggest mass participation events that we do within the partnership. So I really wanted to give them pupils the opportunity to still represent their school, but obviously not in a face-to-face event. So we set up the virtual mile. We didn't know, we were learning as we were going along, kind of thing, but it basically gave a 2-week period for children to take part in running a mile, recording their time, trying to beat their time, and obviously submitting it at the end of it. But what was interesting is that we were getting messages from families saying that we're absolutely loving it. We're all taking part as a family. So we kind of decided, right, well, there's something in that, and the virtual mile became a Rosendale-wide community event where anyone can represent a school of their choice, basically. So parents, grandparents, neighbours, any affiliation, even if you just want whichever school you lived local to, could enter and submit a mile time, and it got really, really popular really, really quickly. And at that time I just decided to set up a social media, so we never even had a Facebook before COVID kind of hit, and my contact was always with school staff. So whatever I would put out there, whether it an event or a program, it'd be contacting primary school or secondary school staff, and they would obviously pass it on to families. But our social media platform kind of really just exploded once we set it up, and we've kind of realised that there's something in that going into future events, where obviously we'll still be working with schools, but we can actually work with families as well, and get the whole community behind these virtual events that we're doing. Like I said, I think there was almost 700 participants in that virtual mile. Bear in mind, we didn't have a Facebook group before that, and virtually everything just came from Facebook within 2 weeks. Like I said, people were sharing it left, right, and centre, and really getting involved. And the messages that we got after the event about people wanting to carry on taking part as a family, and they've never run before, never thought they could run before. And the beauty of it was, it wasn't about who was the fastest. Yes, we did reward for different age group different categories in terms of times, but also it was just about representing your school. So there was rewards for schools that had the most entries, for example. And I think since then we've really developed what our virtual offer is within the community. So I think that's probably key at the moment. There's, in terms of virtual stuff, there's 2 distinct virtual offers. There's one that is very much community based, and it comes out through our social media, and we're getting the whole family involved, and that's outside of school. And then there's a virtual offer where it's taking part in school, and schools record times or scores and then send them into me, and I put them into a league table. So that's kind of a little bit of the journey that we've been on, and how it really started.
Yeah, amazing, and what an incredible journey to think that kids, because it's I think it's really important for children to get that sense of representing their school. Great memories for me as well, and COVID potentially could have taken that away from some kids, but the program that you've delivered has given in some way children opportunities still to do that and to be part of the school program. So I think you've watched some of our podcasts before, and we're going to put you on the spot now with our overrated and underrated feature. And so we've tried to pick out some kind of the key things about school sports, and some of those they're not controversial, but interesting topics. So caveat as normal, this is Nathan Bibby's personal view, not the view of the Valley Leadership Academy or the Youth Sport Trust or anybody else. But we're going to put these on the screen now, and we're going to see what Nathan thinks about some school sports topics. So can you see that okay? Yeah.
Yes.
So here we are, overrated and underrated. First one. So just competitive sports in general, overrated or underrated?
I would say overrated, really. And I think I've definitely learned, pre-COVID, I think the school sports programs especially was very heavily weighted in competitive school sport. And I'm certainly not saying there isn't a place for it. There's definitely a place for it. But if you think about them 11, 13, 14, 15 footballers within each year group in a secondary school, yes, they might be having a fantastic experience, and the footballers and netballers are probably going to be in the rugby, the tennis, the swimming. They tend to be in every team, and we're really not catering necessarily for all pupils, and that's something that is definitely going to be changing within the school sports program moving forward, where we're looking at festivals and really targeting specific pupils, so that it can still be competitive. But I think traditionally sport was and has been just for them elite pupils, I suppose, in terms of physical ability, and that does need to change. So yeah, overrated, but still a place in it within school sport.
Parents on the sidelines, overrated or underrated?
Very much overrated. I think we just, in competition, we just need to let kids be kids, let them learn, and not be shouting. Obviously, we want to watch our children play and encourage them, but especially football for me, the amount of times I've had school sport football matches, and it's just got a little bit nasty, really, from the sidelines. So I think they're definitely overrated. And moving forward, we will be looking to do more events where there are definitely less parents on the sidelines.
Yeah, I think there's that balance, isn't there? Of it's great to be encouraging and supportive, and that creates a really good atmosphere which the kids remember. But it needs to, like you say, be a positive and enthusiastic and supportive atmosphere. I mean, this is not a picture from Rossendale, should I? I think it's a film called Kicking and Screaming. But we do need to make sure that all of the children and all the officials are having a positive experience and a supported one.
Absolutely. I mean, our events are all officiated by pupils from local high schools, so mainly from the Valley, but from BRGS, Hasland and Alder Grange, Whitworth as well. And, there'll be zero tolerance in that. The officials, they're there volunteering, and they're only young pupils, especially in school sports. So absolutely, they need that positive experience too.
Okay, specialist PE lessons in school.
Specialist PE lessons in school. Good one. Probably definitely underrated. I would say. I mean, I think that often people kind of get mixed up between what PE and sport is, and there's a big difference in terms of what we're looking to develop. Physical education. It is education. It's not about a sports coach going in or coaching, and that's something that we've really looked to develop over the last few years within the school sports partnership. So when I'm talking previously about coaches going in from the Leisure Trust, for example, and delivering PE lessons, they are now actually, we are delivering physical education, national curriculum lessons, where they've been working with specialists at Lancashire County Council so that they can go through what's called the Lancashire Scheme of Work and really deliver high quality physical education lessons where, like I said, it's not about sport specific development. It's not just about coaching and telling them what to do. It's about them learning and exploring and trying new things for themselves and on all the other kind of social development that they get from PE. So sport has its place, but PE lessons, there's definitely a big difference, and getting high quality PE lessons in our schools is really, really important, and that's something as a partnership that we've been looking to that we have been developing, and we think we're at a good level now for the last few years, really.
Very good. Junior, we've mentioned this already, but junior referees and officials.
Yeah. The question's underrated or overrated. Probably underrated, but we really, really do appreciate them in Rosendale. You know, we've got a fantastic sports leadership program where, you know, in the past, pre-COVID, we've had over 140 pupils, secondary school pupils within Rosendale that are part of our leadership program, and they go through all sorts of qualifications. But they basically, without them, I wouldn't be able to do 139 competitions throughout the year. You know, we could have 20 teams in one competition on one night, and there's no way that myself and Paul Gallagher, who's from the Leisure Trust, who helps me run the competitions and runs them himself as well, there's no way that we could run them competitions without the officials. And to be fair, if you just look at community sport in general, without referees and officials coming through, then they just wouldn't. Community sport wouldn't happen, would it, without officials? So massively underrated, and we really need to develop our leaders and well, our officials, sorry, and you know, the skills that they get from taking part and officiating some of the competitions is invaluable in terms of employability skills. So yeah, definitely underrated, but we do appreciate them in Rossendale.
Yeah, and I think, you know, there might be parents out there who think, oh, you know, that perhaps they're, but these junior officials, they're they're not only learning and developing, but they're very, very good. You know, they're good at what they do, and I've been really impressed when I've seen them. Next
They
one
are fantastic. Yeah,
is kind of your interform or competitions within the school setting. So within the same school, what about those? Overrated or underrated?
Massively underrated, I think. That's something that we're really trying to work with schools on to start developing for next academic year, and especially with the virtual competitions that we're looking to do. They'll really lend themselves well to interform or intraform competitions, because what we're looking to do with our virtual comps is send schools formats to take part in, and they can send the results back to us, but they can also use them formats as competitions between pupils within their school. And that really, what I think that does, it just opens up so many more pupils to be able to take part in them competitions. So whereas if I'm running a competition, obviously you've got looking at transport, you've got to get the pupils there, can only host a certain amount of pupils. With these type of competitions, literally you could potentially have every single person in the year group taking part in an interform competition, especially in primary schools. There's no reason why all 30 pupils in a class can't take part in this type of stuff. And I think as well as interform, if you look at like personal best type activities, that's something that we're looking to really, really develop, where pupils will have a go at a specific skill, get a score with that, and then within a PE lesson, maybe over the next 4 or 5 weeks, look to develop that skill and then have another go and try to beat their personal best. And that's something that we're looking to reward over the next academic year. Not necessarily the person or the people that are getting the best score, but the ones that can improve their personal best the most. You know, so we're not actually always going to be rewarding the fastest, the furthest, the bigger score, but the ones that are developing themselves and really improving. And then there's also that personal achievement as well. So we can reward people for getting a personal best, so that, you know, that everyone, it's more inclusive and everyone feels, everyone's got a better chance of taking part and for their school, basically.
Cool. Bikeability courses in school, overrated or underrated?
Well, I'd say in Rosendale that they're not underrated just because in Rosendale, I think the majority of schools take part in bikeability, the bikeability program. We've got a fantastic company or organisation that we work with called Go Velo. So I get funding from Lancashire County Council for the bikeability, and then kind of commission Go Velo to go into virtually every school. And and deliver bikeability, and they are absolutely fantastic. We're getting nothing but good reviews from them, and it's absolutely essential that pupils know how to learn how to ride a bike safely on the roads. They teach them all sorts, and they go out they start in the playground, but the second day that they're out on the roads and really teaching them to be safe. And obviously cycling is a fantastic sport to be active, and we've got brilliant cycling routes within Rosendale, and we've got the quarry as well. So yeah, I don't think it's underrated. I think it's very much appreciated within Rosendale schools.
We need a new category, don't we? Underrated or overrated or appreciated.
Appreciated, yeah. Specific to Rosendale, definitely.
Next one is mixed teams with girls and boys playing together.
Probably difficult on that one. Probably underrated, but there's definitely there's absolutely no reason why we can't have mixed teams. But then there's definitely circumstances where it's good to have boys and girls completely separate as well. It's a difficult one, that because one of my KPIs, my key performance indicators for next academic year is to increase girls sport, and there's often research will show that girls don't want to necessarily play with boys, and they want to be on their own at the same time. So I'm not sure whether it's underrated or overrated. I'm on to that one, but what I would say is, moving forward, in terms of mixed teams, in general, we'll be looking next year for many of our events to actually mix up teams within each school. So especially for small schools within Rosendale, so the likes of Sharneyford, who've got 50, 60, less than 100 pupils within their school. If you put them up against someone like a school like Helmshaw with over 400, it's not very fair. So there will be many events where we look to especially small schools, bring them together. So there's definitely something in that as well. But yeah, I'm on the fence with girls and boys. I don't know whether it's overrated, underrated.
Okay, we'll let that one go, but you can't have another fence sitter.
Okay.
But I think there's only one. I don't know what you're going to say for this one. Sports leaders and sports ambassadors within school.
Yeah, massively underrated. Sports leaders, again, like the officials, we couldn't run our competitions without them. But then in terms of ambassadors, we've got young ambassadors within each primary school and secondary school, as well as school sports organising committees. So that's very much similar to your school council, but with a very sports-specific feel to it. So, or on the agenda is all about sport and physical activity. So yeah, definitely underrated. But I think getting that insight from pupils. So the idea of your school sports committees is that they obviously are the voice of the pupils. So they'll do surveys, they'll talk to their peers, and they can feed back and really find out exactly what their pupils want in terms of the school sports offer. There's no point in me putting stuff together, sending it out to schools without having that insight from the pupils, because at the end of the day, the only way to keep people motivated and to want to be physically active throughout their lives is that intrinsic motivation, and it needs to be fun. We need to give pupils positive experiences from an early age around physical activity and sport, so that when they're leaving school and they don't have to do PE and they don't necessarily have to take part in school sport, that they still want to, so that ultimately we have a physically active community and people that are active for life, basically. So yeah, it's really, really important that we have them young ambassadors that promote it, but also get the opinions of their peers as well.
Brilliant. Well, thanks for that. Loads of really insightful stuff, and it's incredible, really, to think all of the different things that are going on within the Rossendale School Sports Partnership and the School Sports Programme. Just in terms of the final handful of minutes now, what, with everything that we've talked about there, with all of the competitions, the specialist PE, the inclusion, what we've had COVID now in this break, so we've identified that kind of virtual offer, and you've talked a bit about that. Just kind of what's the future look like for the school sports partnership and for school sport and competition within Rossendale?
Yeah. So I think we've kind of used COVID as a bit of a reset and a bit of time to have a real think and reflection of what the offer has been. Was it right? Has it been right for all pupils within Rossendale? And the answer is simply no. It wasn't right necessarily, even though we talked about how good the data has been, etc. Pre the pandemic, 38% of up to 38% of pupils in Rossendale by the time in year 6 are either obese or overweight. So that needs addressing, and it's not just down to schools, but we have a big role to play. And through our surveys, it's something like only 19% of pupils are meeting the recommended 60 active minutes. So the Chief Medical Officer for England recommends that pupils do 60 minutes of physical activity every single day. And like I said, the data is showing only 19% during lockdown, only 19% of pupils were meeting that. So again, that's something that we need to address. And then there's also, the mental health side of things during lockdown. Research showing that 41% feel lonely. 41% of our young people are feeling lonely. So I think there's something around what the School Sports Partnership and what our offer could be with that. As well as a third of pupils are feeling sad, worried and stressed during lockdown. And that's a high percentage. And that really does kind of need addressing. So what we're looking to do moving forward as the School Sports Partnership, really encouraging schools to help pupils meet them 60 active minutes. All schools have a target of doing 30 active minutes, 30 minutes of physical activity every single day with their pupils, and that's outside of the PE time. So that could be through active travel, through like brain breaks. So like just doing like little activities in between lessons, just to get the pupils moving, kind of thing. Stuff like wake and shake, which I'm sure some of you might be aware of, but kind of like that's basically just doing dancing in the morning and just getting them up and ready to for the day. Active and outdoor lessons and learning as well. So there's no reason why some maths lessons, for example, could be outside and being physically active. You don't need to just be sat at your desk for 7 hours a day. That's absolutely something that we really do discourage. There's something around forest schools. There's going to be an offer around forest schools, which is really popular at the moment. And I know, again, Chris Willen was talking about that in the podcast a few weeks ago. Structured break times and lunch times. So, for example, our coaches going in, but also kind of sports leaders within schools leading on, structured activities to help pupils to be physically active. And then obviously you've got your breakfast clubs, your lunchtime clubs, your after school clubs as well. But then within the partnership for next academic year, we're looking at bringing potentially in health coaches to do specific health programs with pupils. So whether that's around nutrition or physical activity as well. But then also looking at kind of mindfulness and well-being, kind of yoga activities. We're putting some angling in there, so fishing, where pupils can go out and enjoy the great outdoors as well. And like walking as well, we're getting a local walk leader to go into schools and kind of lead some local walks and how they can do that safely. And then moving forward as well, from we did a survey a few weeks ago with the local community just to find out what they thought of lockdown but also of the virtual stuff that we've been doing. And there'll definitely be a mixture of obviously face-to-face events. as well as virtual events as well. Because as I said before, the benefit of the virtual is that every child can take part, and we can get more of the community involved as well, not just the pupils. But then, as I said, looking at personal bests as well, develop it. But I think the main thing for our events moving forward, whether it's face-to-face or virtual, is that we have real intent. So you know, there's some real specific outcomes that we're looking at. So it's not just about winning, but it could be looking at specific skill development, maybe improving the health. I think COVID's really kind of highlighted the need for social interactions, and you know, the human need for social interactions is definitely there. So our events can kind of help with that, and bringing about social connections, bringing about different communities together, and yeah, really targeting specific audiences as well. So rather than you know, doing really competitive competitions where each school always just brings their best pupils, it's more about, you know, hosting festivals where we'll target specific pupils that schools can come, and being really specific with the type of pupils that we want schools to bring, so that if it is a competitive fixture, that, you know, we don't want to be seeing schools getting beat 6, 7, 8-0 in a football match, for example, stuff like that. So it's trying to make it a little bit more of a level playing field in that sense. And giving pupils just that positive experience. I think that's the main thing. You know, offering a wide range of different activities, not necessarily sport, obviously, but also different types of activities to help them be more physically active is the main aim, really. And then final one for me is connecting local community clubs and connecting schools and pupils to them clubs. But then potentially working with clubs on looking at sessions where it might not necessarily be to go to competitions or to take part in actual fixtures, where it's more just an inclusive offer that they can come down and train and be active and learn new skills and enjoy themselves, but not have that that pressure of having to win and go and take part in actual competitions. That, you know, there's room for that, but then other nights, could it just be a training session for people just to want to come down, learn a new skill, play, and potentially maybe move into the more competitive stuff, but maybe they just want to stay active and just take part in the more participation side of stuff, I suppose. So yeah, there's a lot going on, but hopefully it'll be good.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it will be. It's very exciting. Nathan, thank you for taking the time to be with us today and to share some of that vision and some of your impressions that, you know, the school sports provision in Rossendale is really fantastic. If people want to find out a bit more, is it Rossendale School Sports Partnership on Facebook that they can look for?
Yes.
Details of stuff going on is on there.
Yeah.
And if anyone's got any questions or comments from today's podcast, if you put them in the comments on the Healthy Rossendale Facebook page, we'll be able to respond to those as well. So thank you, Nathan, for taking the time to be with us, and keep up the incredible work. And you know, we look forward to getting back to seeing kids playing sports on school fields and school sports days and school competitions in from September onwards, I guess.
Absolutely. Well, there's a few there's some cautious plans to do some face-to-face competitions after May half term. So watch this space, I suppose.
That's a good note to finish on. Nathan, thank you very much, and to everyone watching, thanks for taking the time to watch, and hopefully see you all soon.
Cheers, Ken. Thank you.